Okay, everybody, welcome. Welcome to part two of the HeartSmarts and Perfect Foods Food as Medicine series. As I stated, my name is Dr. Naa-Solo Tettey. I am the creator and director of the HeartSmarts program. Um, the mission of HeartSmarts is to empower communities through education and action. HeartSmarts has been in existence since 2012, and we really are trying to change the narrative and reverse many of the health disparities and negative health conditions that we hear about affecting the African American and Hispanic communities. And one of the ways that we're doing that is through introducing people to more of a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. And so for this 4-week series, we are partnering with Perfect Foods to learn more about the power of foods in healing our bodies, healing our communities. And in order for us to do that, we have been reading the Sprout book by Doug Evans. And this book has just been life-changing. And we'll talk about that more in a few moments with Doug Evans, who's here with us this evening. And so I just want to give a brief introduction. Just things that. All right. So Doug Evans is an early pioneer in the health food movement. After losing his mother to cancer and his father to heart disease and watching his brother suffer through diabetes and 3 strokes, he invested in and co-founded Organic Avenue. Organic Avenue was the first cold-pressed juice and raw food retailer in the United States. He was the inventor and founder of Juicero, the first at-home cold-pressed juicing system. Doug has been an avid sprouter for over 20 years and wrote the Sprout book to help create a movement around growing your own food. Okay. And so, Doug, as I was sharing with you, we have just been taking a deep dive into any and everything that you have said and written. And for our homework assignment, so to speak, this week, we watched one of the podcasts that you were featured in. And in that podcast, the host asked you about your daily kind of mantra and your affirmation towards health. And you shared with her what you say to your, at that time, 5-month-old daughter. And it just brought tears to my eyes. And I thought it was the most amazing thing. And I thought it connected with the mission of HeartSmarts. And so I shared this picture with you and everyone in attendance to show the journey that the HeartSmarts participants are on, the journey for better health, the journey to do a new thing. And so you shared, I'll greet this day with love in my heart, and most of all, I will love myself. For when I do, I will zealously inspect all things that enter my body, my mind, my soul, and my heart. Never will I overindulge the request of my flesh. Rather, I'll cherish my body with cleanliness and moderation. Never will I allow my mind to be attracted to evil and despair. Rather, I will uplift it with knowledge and wisdom of the ages. And so with that being said, I'm gonna unshare my screen. And I would like to introduce you all on the screen to Doug Evans, who's our special guest this evening, and Rebecca Matsil from Perfect Foods. And Doug, before you say anything, I would just like to unmute everyone so we can give you a formal HeartSmarts welcome. So everybody, from your heart and everything that we've been saying that we feel for Doug, he is here now, so let him have it. Welcome, Doug, to HeartSmarts.
Welcome, Doug.
Yay!
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Welcome.
Hey, good to meet you.
Welcome. Thank you for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
For coming.
We love you.
So, well, look, thank you so much for that warm welcome. And, I wrote the book for each and every one of you. And originally, so, I wrote the book for myself because when I had known about sprouts, but they were always like on the periphery. They were always like a garnish or a superfood or a snack. And then, for the first time in my life, about 5 years ago, I experienced food scarcity. And I moved to the desert because I wanted to be energetically free. I'd been living in the city my whole life and I wanted to be in the desert. So I found these little hot springs near Joshua Tree, and it was beautiful and I could see the stars. But then I realized that there was no access to food and there was no farmers markets, there was no organic restaurants, there was no health food stores, there was no Whole Foods. And that was the first time literally since I got out of the military. In the military, there's a lot of food scarcity, but that was self-inflicted. But here, I was concerned with what I was going to eat. And I realized I was in a food desert. And the closest restaurant was 7-Eleven and Del Taco and Burger King. And none of those met my standard. So that's like the first message I just want to convey to all of you is that raise your standards. You now, if you're 10 minutes with Dr. Tettey, you know what's healthy or not. So I've been keeping my standard really high. So I raised my standard. And what fits in with that standard of what I'm willing to consume is fresh, ripe, raw fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, seaweeds, and sprouts. And so anything that doesn't meet that criteria, I'm not willing to sacrifice, my health, my longevity, my family by consuming it because my prehistoric reptilian brain is addicted to fat, oil, sugar, processed food. And there's 5,000 engineers sitting in offices around the country trying to concoct food to make it super highly addictive and devoid of natural micronutrients, phytonutrients, polyphenols, antioxidants. It's all like processed garbage. So when you go into the health food store, you go into Whole Foods, and there's only 550 Whole Foods in the entire country for a population of 330 million. When I go into Whole Foods, there's maybe 25 or 30 items that meet my criteria of what I'm willing to eat. The rest of the items, just I don't even look at as food. They're just like these colorful things that are traps. And so for me, back to the sprouting, I went and asked the universe, and I'm not that highly of a religious or spiritual person, but I asked the universe, I said, what can I do? Because I really love it here. And as I didn't know, maybe it's hard to grow a tomato. It's hard to grow leafy lettuce. These things could take weeks or months or years or never. And in the desert, it's like tenfold harder. So that's when like the universe whispered in my ear, said, Doug, why don't you just sprout? You know about sprouts. You got some jars, order some seeds, you could sprout. And I'm like scratching my head. I'm saying, no, that's too obvious. That's too good to be true. So that night, while staring at the Milky Way and staring at the galaxies far and beyond, I got the download that's really three parts. Number one, that sprouts were food. They weren't a garnish, they were food, they were vegetables. And number two, sprouts were vitamins and minerals. And in addition to being vitamins and minerals, every benefit of the whole food plant-based diet could be achieved by eating sprouts, because sprouts are vegetables. So we have the society that's eating protein powders and vitamin supplements and multivitamins, when in fact, you could grow your own vitamins by sprouting these seeds. And then the third was, and this was really mind-boggling for me, was that sprouts were medicine, that there was peer-reviewed, published research and data that demonstrated the medicinal properties, the efficacy of sprouts in treating, not necessarily curing, but treating most major chronic illnesses. That there were research papers about the anti-cancer compounds within sprouts that would kill cancer cells. That there was research that demonstrated how properties within sprouts could detoxify benzene and air pollutants from the lungs. And unless you're living, in paradise, you're exposed to air pollutants, benzene, exhaust fumes, the dust that's generated from brakes of cars when they're stopping. All of those accumulate in the lungs and they're toxic. And the broccoli sprouts could detoxify them. And how the sprouts could be used to help regulate insulin levels in diabetes. And so I started to go down these different rabbit holes, and I learned that type 2 diabetes is a result of diet. It's diet and lifestyle, that you eat processed food, refined food, meat, dairy, animal products, you gain weight, become overweight, you become insulin resistant, and then you become type 2 diabetic, and then you have to become an insulin diabetic. And then if you don't really treat it and your A1C goes high and your fasting blood sugar goes high, next thing you know, you start to lose feelings in your fingers and in your toes and in your feet. And the next thing is amputations. And that's what happened to my aunt. But I didn't make the connection that that was a result of her diet. And my aunt was a smart woman. And I'm like, how could she go down this path? And then I realized there was this asymmetry between the 5,000 food engineers and the $1 trillion food industry that's designing food to become highly addictive to the prehistoric brain that just wants to eat things that taste good, that make you feel good. And those happen to be fat, oil, and sugar. So that was a real awakening for me. And then I realized that sprouts not only can regulate insulin levels in diabetics, but sprouts could be the #1 weight loss food at the lowest cost per calorie, that was the most filling, that you could grow your own vegetables and you could get filled with sprouts. And as long as you're not adding oils and salts and sweeteners and fats, you will start to regenerate your taste buds, and you will start to be able to, every single one of you on this Zoom can be able to close their eyes and say, oh, that's an alfalfa sprout. That's a broccoli sprout. That's a clover sprout. That's a lentil sprout. That's a green pea sprout, right? That's a garbanzo bean sprout. You will know and you will fall in love with these foods. And what happens is when you take a seed, and a seed is a complete living organism in a dormant state. It's like hibernating. It's just waiting. And then you have the power to bring this seed to life by following the simple protocol of soaking the seeds and rinsing them. And when you do that, it's going through a metamorphosis, which is similar to that of a moth turning into a butterfly. That this little seed will sprout and germinate and turn into a living vegetable. And in the process of doing that, it doubles the antioxidants. It triples the vitamin C. It quadruples the soluble and insoluble fiber. And it's just unbelievable that you can actually have your own garden in the size of a shoebox, and you could be growing your own vegetables for you and your family. And if you desire to feel the best ever, you can do that by eating sprouts. Now, I'm going to throw in something else that I haven't said on podcasts before or Zoom, is that in nature, there are no animals that overeat, even when they're given abundance. So even a carnivore, with a whole flock of sheep, like a big lion, is not going to go after and kill all the sheep and all the deer and eat everything. It's going to eat one until it's no longer hungry or it's full. It's just going to eat what it needs. But if you were to cook it up and add salt, add oil, add sweeteners, add spices, and you make it taste delicious, we'd have all of these animals in nature that look like all these domesticated dogs and cats, right? Because humans are feeding them emotionally because they get feeling good feeding them. And you have all these overweight, chronically ill, domesticated animals. So we have to be really, really present when we are around food to know that food can either be the sustenance for our life, or it could be our death wish. And I'm sure you've heard me say everything I put in my mouth is a life or death decision. So, like, I won't eat one potato chip, not because I think one potato chip will kill me, because I know the reaction in my brain that one potato chip is too much for me. And all the potato chips in the world will never make me happy, will never be enough. So I'm going to not go down that path because that is a trap that will get me hooked and for life. So in my world, which, with Organic Avenue is expensive. You'd buy a juice, it was $10. You'd buy a salad, it was $15. You'd buy a entree, it could be $18. Those were inaccessible to most people. And even when I'd buy my own lunch, because I didn't want to take from the store inventory, I'd have to really think twice about spending $25 for a meal. Now with Sprouts have helped me shift into the abundance consciousness that there's so many seeds that sprout and that grow in this abundance that we now have the answer. The universe has provided the answer to all of us. And it is no coincidence. It is not luck. It is not chance. You now have the information to take control of your lives and your family lives when you have a reason. So it's one, not like I want to lose weight or I want to be healthy. It's like I want to live because I was given this gift of life, and I have family, I have friends, I have coworkers, people who rely on me, relatives, and I want to be the best version of myself for them and for the universe so I can make a contribution to them and to myself. And so that's where you have to take exceptional care of yourself. Like this body, this flesh is the transport vehicle for your soul, your spirit, your mission. And it's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's hard to say no to the poison. It's hard to say no to family and friends who are not clued in to this consciousness that each and every one of you now know. Because you're going to go, like I get invited, people like me. I go to different people's houses and people will offer me food that in the past I would have fought for over. Here's lobster tails. Here's sirloin steak. Here's fried chicken. Here's tempura shrimp. Here's fried this. Here's calamari. All of these things that when I was growing up, I associated with affluence, with abundance, with success. And now everywhere I go, I tell everybody, look, I'm not going to tell you what to eat or what not to eat, but I'm only going to eat these things. And if there's nothing there for me to eat, I'm just going to drink water and you can enjoy and we'll have the best time ever. But I know that I'm not going to compromise. And they go, oh, well, there's only a little feta cheese, in the salad. And I go, a little feta cheese is too much feta cheese for me. Like a little ranch dressing is too much ranch dressing for me. Like I don't do that. It's like I'm as strict with that as if I was like going to be injecting something into my veins. Like how much, heroin is okay. Oh, little okay. Like I do no heroin. I do no crack. I don't smoke any marijuana. I don't smoke any cigarettes. So I just have my little, operating manual, and I call that my standards. And that's what I would communicate to you is that you, each and every one of you, get to establish what your standard is of what you're willing to consume and have enough reasons why. And then when it comes to eating, you want to take many deep breaths. You want to offer your grace. You want to be really present when you're around food because it's really dangerous. It's really dangerous because once you open up the floodgate, it's hard, really hard to put that genie back in the bottle. So when you're around food, just know like this is like dangerous situation. This is like a war zone, right? There's landmines, there's artillery, there's spies, there's double agents. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that is not there to serve you. And when you are aware of that, it's like I just, I know that like when I was going up to Oakland in February, and my host said, Doug, it's raining, it's sleeting, it's hailing, it's cold, there's flooding, and we're going to the top of the mountain. So I'm bringing out all the gear. I got rain gear, I got hats, I got helmet, I got galoshes, and I was prepared for battle. So I wasn't a victim. I wasn't surprised. I was prepared for battle because I knew the weather was so rough and it was so inclement that it wasn't hospitable to me in my normal desert outfit, walking around in barefoot in shorts and in tank top. I was going into a tough environment. When you go out to eat, I would put on the armor. And there's no shame in telling people what your standards are. And there's no feeling guilty about someone making food and they go, oh, I made the food. I didn't want them to feel bad, so I ate it. I mean, for me, it's like, no, give it to someone else. Like it's their issue. Your issue, my issue is to make sure that I am the healthiest version of myself. And I'm going to have my standards. I am joy. I am faith. I am love. I am nature's greatest miracle. I have high standards of what I'm willing to consume. And that's how, I'm living, my life. Now, I'm 57 years old. So, I wasn't like this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It took constant work for me to get to the level of where I am today. And so if you make a mistake and you can identify that it was a mistake and you can see where you went wrong and what you could do to prevent this mistake from occurring again, that's a success. And you celebrate that is a success. I see that I went to this person's house and I just put my guard down, and next thing I know, I had a whole pint of Ben and Jerry's. And now I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tape my mouth shut. And I'm not going to take my tape off until there's food around there that's for me to eat. And if there's not, I'm going to give everybody a hug. I'm going to give them a kiss. I'm going to tell them I love them. And I'm going to run for the door because that place is not safe for me. And this is what's going to happen because every time you make a resistance, every temptation resisted is going to make you stronger, more powerful, more prepared for the next situation. And that's, what life is about. For whatever reason and whatever your spiritual belief is, this is a fact. Each and every one of you have the power of choice. You were given the power of choice. You are not a robot and someone is programming you and telling you what to do or not to do. You have the power of choice. And if you use that power of choice and that will and that information and that determination, then you get to experience the beauty and the magic of life. And at 57 years old, I just have, my baby is going to turn 11 months old. I waited a long time, to have this child because I wasn't ready. Everyone has addictions. My addiction wasn't overeating. My addiction was workaholism. Like I came from such scarcity, such a poor background that I wanted to be rich because then I thought I would be good enough. And so whatever trauma I had to work. And if I wasn't doing something productive, I thought I wasn't, contributing. So I could not work. I was working 80 hours a week, 120 hours a week. I was always on. And, fortunately, that didn't kill me, but it killed most of the people around me. And that's when I said, I don't want to slow down. I just want to be present to the fact that we live in an abundant world. And now, even though, and this really pains me, in the world today, 10,000 people approximately have food insecure issues, that they are starving, that they are dying of starvation. Like that really, really pains me. And I think sprouts can be a solution to that. And then also, we have the other end of the spectrum where we have 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people getting chronically ill with diabetes, obesity, heart disease, cancer, most of which can be reversed. And almost all of them were caused by diet and lifestyle. So if someone could take sprouts and turn them into a pill and say, eat this pill, it's $30 per week, and you just eat this and you'll be all healthy, and some insurance can cover it and someone can market it, etc., then that would be $1 trillion industry, right? But the fact is, nature said, you want to be healthy through plants, that you could grow a garden, and now that garden can be your countertop garden with sprouts. And each and every one of you can take a mason jar, they can take the sprouting kit, whatever you bought from Rebecca or online or wherever. You can add your seeds, add your water, talk to it, be present with it, and it's going to blossom for you and give you the healthiest, most nutrient dense, most bioavailable food on the planet. You will be eating, I guarantee, better than Donald Trump ate or eats, better than Biden eats, better than anyone in that White House is eating, because you will be growing your own nutrient dense food and you will be in control. So, Dr. Tettey, that's my sermon of the evening.
Doug, I didn't even tell you this was a faith-based program. I didn't know you were coming to preach tonight, but everyone put your amens, your hallelujahs in the chat, because you just gave us a word. And, sometimes when you look up to someone or you admire them, you don't want to meet them because they might not be as cool as they've been perhaps on the TV or whatever. You are all that and a bag of apples, a bag of cucumbers, a bag of everything healthy. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think beyond what you've already done, you've inspired people even more. The last time we were this excited about a book when a person was fiber fueled with Dr. B, and it was so awesome to see in your book that you are friends with him. And then also in watching some of your podcasts, you mentioned David Goggins, and that's the other person that we're really excited about. So this is really a full circle moment for all of us, and we're just so honored to have you here and for what you just shared with us. In the few minutes that we have left with you, if anyone has a pressing question for Doug, please put it in the chat. One question that I do want to ask you, first, something that people always want to know when we have someone like you come on: what do you eat and what is your regimen in a given day in terms of when you wake up, what do you do? We know that you fast, so can you tell us more about that, why that's important? And on a typical day, what are you eating?
So I have a feeding window usually between noon and darkness or 7 p.m. So I like to let my internal organs rest, and I like to delay the consumption, of my eating, because I know that I have a propensity to overeat. If food is there, I will eat it. And so developing that discipline of the small feeding window is very powerful to let my internal organs rest. Then I love fruit, and I think fruit is nature's gift. So beautiful, sweet, naturally occurring fructose and glucose that occurs in fruit. So I love fruit. So I eat fruit that's ideally in season and is geographically local to me. I know now we can, have things flown over from all parts of the world, but I think I prefer to eat things that are local and definitively organic. So today I had organic watermelon and I ate an abundance of organic watermelon. So I had half, probably half of a big watermelon. I don't know how many pounds it was. And then about an hour and a half later, I had some organic cherries that are just coming into season in California. And then that was it. And now, as we get back on the road, I travel with sprouted garbanzo beans. So these are 36 hours from zero to hero. So I soak the garbanzo beans, and that's a snack, very rich in protein, very rich in amino acids. So I'll have that. And then for dinner, I generally have a sprout-based salad. So I stopped buying lettuces and I stopped buying, little baby leafy greens, and I use sprouts. And typically I'll have broccoli sprouts, I'll have alfalfa sprouts, I'll have clover sprouts, I'll have lentil sprouts. So I love the variety. And if you understand the microbiome from my friend, Dr. B, the variety of soluble and insoluble fiber is key. So I will get a lot of variety there. And then I will usually dress it. And I sometimes I'll have just straight lemon. Sometimes I'll make a tahini dressing. I like ferments like sauerkraut, good probiotics. But if you've seen my videos, I've been making my own sauerkraut at home where I juice celery juice. But I would say that unless you have a real issue with salt, it might be easier for you to use sea salt to make your sauerkraut. But you want a raw, fresh sauerkraut that's enzymatically alive. And then I'll mix the sauerkraut with tahini, which is basically 100% sesame paste with a little bit of the brine from a pickle or from the sauerkraut. And I'll mix that, or a little balsamic vinegar that I'll dilute with water, just because I don't like too much of that. And that's it. And I stopped eating dessert because I realized that I was only eating dessert because I thought it was a reward and it was an emotional hit. And that, the key for me is right after I eat, I go brush my teeth, right? And if I can brush my teeth, I know that I'm done. Like I'm signaling to my brain that I'm done. And after I brush my teeth, I can just consume water till it's time to go to bed.
So many of the people who are in this meeting are on perhaps some kind of medication, maybe perhaps even antibiotics. What is your suggestion to those people in terms of their gut microbiome? In some of the podcasts that we watched, it seemed as if they should be coming off of those if possible, because it's kind of like counteracting whatever positive things would be happening. Can you explain that in a little more detail?
Well, these medications that you're on, and by the way, I love modern day medicine. So let's just be really clear. I love doctors. I love modern day medicine. So this isn't judging. My hallucination is that these medications will never make you better. They will treat you to be able to keep a level of homeostasis so that you will be sick forever. And you'll have these medications so that you'll be able to be functioning. And so the reason why people are on statins is because they've got a high LDL cholesterol. The reason why they've got hypertension is because they've got high blood pressure and their diet and their heart is working hard. Their triglycerides, totally driven and connected to food. So the most important thing you have to be aware of, that these medications were prescribed to a patient when they were at a current state of life. So it's really important to work with your doctor or with your health practitioner so that as your life changes, they can adjust the medications so that you can ultimately get off the medications, and you could be as your creator designed you to be.
And so as we start this sprouting process, and so over the next week, we're going to watch our sprouts grow. Can you give the people in this meeting a suggestion in terms of what they should also be doing over the course of this week in terms of their diet? So someone who's still eating the standard American diet, and then they add sprouts to it, is that even worth it to do? Or for the
Yeah.
next week, what should they be doing?
Yeah, I think the sprouts are really powerful, and they will take over your brain and your microbiome in your gut. And they will start to wrestle the demons in your gut. So I think the more, my suggestion is eat more fruits and vegetables and more sprouts, and look at the other stuff that you're eating and ask yourself really candidly, is it worth it? Like, do you really need this? And what's going to happen if you don't eat it? But by adding more sprouts into the diet and adding more fiber, and I would say eat the sprouts first. Make it a goal to see if you could fill up on sprouts, and then you'll have less temptation to eat other things. So that would be my suggestion. And realize that, there's a poem. I'm going to recite for you a poem. There's a poem called Invictus. And Invictus was written by William Ernest Henley. And Invictus means incapable of being overcome, unconquerable. And the poem goes like this: out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Beneath the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, yet unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
And I think that's an excellent place to end.
Yes.
With you. Go ahead. Yes.
So no, thank you. And like, this is it. Like, you are the captains of your soul. You cannot control your children, your spouse, your parents, your friends, your coworkers, but you can control yourself. And that is the most difficult thing to control. And if you can do that, all of your dreams will come true. So thank you, everyone, for your attention, for your love, for your support, for your desire, to be healthy. So you're here. You could be doing anything else. I'm sure there's some good sitcom, reality TV show, Kim Kardashian, something's got to be on TV, and you're choosing to be here. So that's very powerful. And just being here and feeling the love and the energy of this room, of this community. And if you're concerned, I'm sure there's other people in this group or in your church or in your friends that when you're feeling weak or vulnerable or depressed, pick up the phone, call someone so that you can get the support you need when you need it.
Excellent. And Doug, where can they follow you, whether on social media or online?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, just my name, Doug Evans. And I'm on Twitter at Doug Evans. And I'm on TikTok, which is, I'm probably the most productive, good source of information on TikTok. It's just Sprout Wiz, SPROUTWIZ on TikTok. And you could sign up for my newsletter at thesproutbook.com. And so I'll be sending and sharing some really good information about sprouting, through that vehicle.
Okay, excellent. Rebecca, is there anything you wanted to say before I say the final?
No, I'm speechless. No, I just think that if I were to say my takeaways from what you said, just like to speak for everybody, the biggest thing that I saw from you was the passion and the standards that you have for yourself. That was my biggest takeaway, is the standards that you have for yourself, from like a spiritual, physical, mental, emotional place. And that's something that all of us can learn from and be inspired by, because even for myself, like I've gone in and out of it. Like when I started my raw vegan cleanse, I had that standard at the utmost. And then like somewhere along the way, I allowed it to go down because of social things. And exactly what you said, that when you let your guard down, it's really hard to get back at it. So being inspired and recognizing that conviction of high standards and not allowing anything to compromise that is the key to like self-respect and self-love. So I think like you're totally speaking all of our languages, and we love you, and that's it.
Excellent.
Thank
And
you.
Doug, you said in one of your last podcasts about Unleashed 2023. And so you
Yeah.
have unleashed us. We are unleashed, ready to go, ready to sprout. I didn't even post yet all the weightlifting and everything that we've been doing, but now we're going to do it with sprouts. And so it's going to go to another level, and we're going to tag you. So we want to be part of that movement, Unleashed 2023. And again, thank you so much. I am so grateful to you for the book, for you being with us here tonight. And we hope that HeartSmarts is now somewhere in your mind. And if there's any way that we can be a part of anything you're doing in the future, we would love to. So thank you very much. Go ahead.
Well, terrific. Just, I answer most of my social media as long as it's not a troll. If you troll, they get blocked and deleted automatically. But I know you guys are all love. So thank you. And Harley, I used to buy wheatgrass from Harley, 25 years ago. So, and wheatgrass juicers, and, Harley is a living legend. So thank you for your
Thank
kind
you.
words, Harley. And
Harley
we
still
Thank
wants
you.
to say hi.
Okay. Hey, everybody, I got a nice drive. I love everybody. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for having me.
Doug,
Take care
let
you
me
so
just say,
much. Have a great
they
evening.
unmuted me. Let me just say hi.
Okay. Hi. Nice to hear your voice,
Okay.
Harley.
You
Rebecca's
did
doing a
great,
great job.
Doug. That was amazing.
Thank you so
I
much,
didn't
Harley.
know
Hey, I'm
know
going to
you
give
were a
everybody a
legend.
treat before we get off. Look at my baby.
Okay,
Here's
thank you.
baby Leaf.
Oh,
Thank you.
Cute.
Doug, Eileen.
Beautiful. Wow.
Beautiful.
Congratulations.
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 What?
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations and thank
So much.
you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
There's
you.
my mom. There's
Hug.
my lovely wife.
Travel.
Hi,
Thank
lovely wife.
you.
Dr. Tettey, tell my wife how I did.
You did amazing.
Amazing.
Life.
Wow.
Doug, bye.
Beautiful.
Life.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Hi, Doug.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Love you.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Oh my God, I'm flying. I gotta go.
Keep
I'm
sprouting.
now. I gotta go.
And that was beyond awesome. So just get a grip of ourselves. And so thank you so much, Rebecca, for making that happen. I don't think I'm going to believe that happened for the rest of this week, but that was awesome, and he's awesome, and that was just amazing. So if we were excited to sprout before, now we're even more excited to sprout. So I am going to let you take it away. Will your dad be joining you today on screen, or will it just be you?
he can pop in, I guess. Yeah, have him on. Sure.
All right, so I'm gonna go off.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so I want to just take a second to appreciate the history of, so just to appreciate Doug, to appreciate like everybody and anyone who has gotten us to this point to appreciating sprouts. Okay, now we're talking about sprouts like it's this sort of like miracle brand new thing, but really all that it is the most basic form of everything, right? It's literally the most basic form of everything. And the fact that Doug and us and everybody's coming to you and be like, there's this new thing called sprouts. It's so good for you. Like it is, all things that have ever existed came from a sprout. And the fact that we're just getting to the point of consciousness where we're honoring them and like worshiping them is kind of funny. but also like, let's just congratulate ourselves for getting to this point, because it is exactly as Doug was saying, it is where we should be. We should be honoring and worshiping these baby plants and putting them not as a sprinkle into our on our avocado toast, not as a garnish at a restaurant, but as the base of our diets. So the question is, how do we make it be the base of our diets? How do we make it be what is the primary form of our nutrients? How do we use it instead of having green powders and having supplements and having anything processed, anything bottled? Or instead of gardening, not to say that you shouldn't garden, but if you're in an urban environment, how do we get fresh food into our diet regularly in a high concentration when we have gut health issues, when we have inflammation, when we're feeling like we're craving foods and we can't get back into balance, when we like for example, what he was saying about an entire bag of chips, that it'll never satisfy you, but a bag of Sprouts will. I use that exact same analogy all the time, that like you can eat an entire bag of chips and never get full. But a bag of Sprouts, it nourishes you. That's what we have to think of when we think while we're growing these sprouts, honoring them, worshiping them, and realizing that they are us, we are them. It is like the most pure form of nature. And like we can see ourselves in the sprouts growing, being nurtured by water, being nurtured by care, and just like loving them like any other being on earth needs love. So I know that's a little bit out there, but there actually is a lot of research on like when you're growing something, the intention that's behind it like determines how it grows. Not to say that you can like have a bad intention and it's not going to grow well, because sprouts are really, really simple to grow. So you really can't mess it up. But just to bring it to the next level of like, while you're doing this process, to come from a place of joy, come from a place of excitement, come from a place of abundance. Just like Doug was saying, that we're not in this scarcity mindset. Abundance isn't like fried calamari anymore. Like abundance and joy is literally living foods and sprouts, because we should be eating foods that are alive. If we're living beings and we want to feel alive, we should be eating foods that are alive. If we want to feel sluggish and tired and dead, then have food that's dead. So this is the gift. This knowledge is a gift for all of us. You guys with me? Okay, cool. So, what?
A couple of things,
Okay.
real quick. When I started my business 42 years ago, my grandmother from Polish born, she just said to me, "Oh, my mother used to sprouts on the windowsill." So this sprouting as we know it now is an ancient thing, and it sustained humans, throughout time. Poland is a tough environment. They have long, hard winters. Food is scarce. How did they live over there? Sprouts. So Doug found it in the desert. It's been going on. We're just refinding it. I want to just say that. And another little tiny, yes. I mentioned that I've gone to the Optimum Health Institute many times, gone on the raw food diet for weeks at a time. And one time I remember me and 3 or 4 friends, we wanted to go to La Jolla, south of San Diego. And we were walking for hours and we got hungry because, nothing sticks to your ribs. And we went into a health food store and we bought a little container of pea sprouts, sprouted peas, not green pea shoots that we sell, but they were just the little peas. The 4 of us couldn't finish this one little thing. That's how filling it is, because when everything is clean and you actually absorb all the nutrients from these perfect sprouts, they actually fill you, and you really say, "I don't want to eat anymore," with almost nothing. So, and whereas a handful of these little sprouts would not have constituted a side dish in a meal normally, and you'd be hungry for dessert when you were done with this giant meal. So I just want you to know that if you do what Rebecca is saying, that you won't be hungry. You'll be shocked to say, like, "Wow, I'm not hungry," even with a little amount of sprouts. Okay.
Okay. All right. So let's get into sprouting. So I want you to put in the chat a 1 if you got your kit. I also want to like just huge thank you to the HeartSmarts community, because I think we got like 70 orders. And like it was way overwhelming for us, but also from the bottom of our heart, like it's our gift to you guys. And just big thank you and like congratulations for taking the initiative. Okay, so we've got tons and tons and tons of people who got their kit. Amazing. If anybody has any issues, didn't get their kit for some reason, there are a few people who messaged me of like just a couple people of some stuff. Just email me and we'll take care of it. But in the meantime, I'm telling you, the whole process of how to sprout is going to take me like 1 minute. So just, you can learn how to do it, absorb it, and then rewatch this, and you can do it when you do get your seeds. And like I said, if you don't have anything, grab some lentils from your counter, run to ShopRite, get some lentils, and you can start with just that. Okay. So, what I want to do is I want everybody to take out their seed kit, their sprouting kit, and we're just going to take a look at what we have. So first I have the instructions, just like a very simple guide. We have lentil seeds. All of these are organic and non-GMO seeds. So these are lentil, these are mung bean, these are broccoli, and these are radish. And the lentil, you guys know what lentil seeds are. Mung bean are like the bigger ones that are green. Radish are like the reddish ones, and the broccoli are the small black ones. You guys with me on that? Okay. And basically all that you really need to know, I'm going to share my screen really quick. Actually, this is something that I did want to show. It's an excerpt from the Hippocrates Diet and Health Program by Ann Wigmore, the book. And Ann Wigmore is like a legend. She was the one who started the raw food diet. And like, you know, we talked about her last week. She healed herself from wheatgrass, with wheatgrass. And so she wrote in her book, can you imagine seeing a classified ad in the newspaper that reads, $1 million reward for information leading to the creation of an edible plant food that grows in any climate, rivals both beef and store-bought produce in nutritional value, matures in 3 to 5 days, may be planted anytime, requires neither soil nor sunshine, equals oranges and tomatoes and vitamin C, has no waste, can be eaten without processing or preparation, is digested with little effort, costs less than any other food per food value dollar, lasts several days without refrigeration, is low in calories, offers complete protein, and has been tested and used as both food and medicine for thousands of years. Yet sprouts really are worth $1 million in economic savings, health-giving qualities, variety, and great taste. With a jar, some water, and a little effort, you can easily transform highly nutritious seeds, beans, and grains into delicious living vegetables loaded with vitamins, minerals, proteins, enzymes, and natural fiber. Enzyme activity reaches its peak between the second and seventh day after sprouting. These young sprouts are the most nutritious. Okay, so this is how to sprout at home. These are the different seeds that I'm sending you. So broccoli seeds, you really only need to use about 3 tablespoons, and radish seeds about 3 tablespoons, lentil and mung about a half a cup. How much seeds to soak is a good question. And that's just dependent on how much you want to make this a lifestyle and how much you want to be having this regularly. So I recommend to start with this small amount, but then the second round you can do more. And also the question is, how often do you start new seeds? Because if you want to have a ready flow of them, if it takes like 3 to 5 days to grow, then you might want to like re-sprout more seeds every like 5 days or so. And so lentil and mung bean seeds, they take about like 2 to 3 days to sprout. It's very, very quick. In fact, only within 24 hours, you're going to see a little tiny tail coming out. So lentil and mung bean seeds are super duper quick, and they're bigger, so they have a higher volume. Plus, and they don't have like a really pungent, intense flavor like broccoli and radish do. So you can eat them by the handful. That's why I always say to do a little bit more of the lentil and the mung beans. Broccoli sprouts are kind of like the most researched and the most famous of them. And I'm going to talk about them a little bit, but still they grow in volume pretty, like they like triple or quadruple in volume. So whatever you grow is going to like definitely, it's going to be a lot more than you would expect in the jar. But they are super spicy. So I don't eat the broccoli or the radish like by the handful. I just, you know, I put them into smoothies, I put them into salads, but not just like completely by themselves because they're super spicy. So that's like just the basics of how much to be doing. And then this is the different ways that you can do it. We talked about this last time. You have the jar with the mesh on top. Go ahead, Dad, did you want to say something? I'm gonna go over this really quick, but okay, yeah, so you have the jar method or you have the strainer method. And so I'm gonna show you what I'm doing with that. Type in the chat if 1 if you are doing the jar method, and type in the chat 2 if you're doing the strainer method. And then if you have any questions and I don't have anything and I'm confused, I don't know what to do, then like just type 3. So with all of this, I also want to just show a very quick, despite the fact that I'm going to show you everything, I want to just show a very quick, this is my Instagram.
To sprout at home, use a half a cup of seeds, soak it in water and cover it for 8 to 12 hours. Day 2, drain the seeds into a finely rolled colander and shake the colander so that there's no moisture left. Rinse the seeds, leave it to finish draining and cover with a moist towel. Continue twice a day to rinse the seeds. To reduce mold, you can gently move the seeds around in the colander to make sure that they're all getting equally rinsed and dried. And you know that they're sprouted when the tail is about the same size as the seed. You can sprout mung beans, lentils, and broccoli here the same way. You can also sprout using the jar method, which is the most popular on the internet, which is putting the seeds and soaking them in a jar and then draining them with some type of finely rolled mesh on the top. And then you turn them upside down in order to drain them. So you just leave them on the counter in between 2 things or put them in a sprouting jar. And in just a few days, you have yourself a batch of delicious and super nutritious sprouts with 40 times the nutrients and tons of flavor that you can put in smoothies or salads and munch on. And we teach you how to grow them in our Raw Vegan Reset Cleanse program. And we
Okay, so that just is like a bit of a overview visual. Let's see what we got here. Okay, we've got most everybody's doing jar. Some people are doing a little bit of both. Dina and Deneen is I don't know what to do. Eileen is I don't know what to do. Okay, so while I do this, hopefully everybody will know what to do, but let's just get started. So seriously, the most simple thing is if you guys want to do all 4 at the same time, I would recommend to do all 4 at the same time since you're with me, and let's just try it, right? So basically you're just taking, 3 tablespoons and soaking it with 3 times the water for each of them. So if we're going to do the jar method, you can either use your normal jars that you have, or you know me, I just use whatever mesh I can find with a rubber band. And then I'm going to put 3 tablespoons of the broccoli into a mason jar. And I would love your, I would love you guys to do this with me right now, if you can. If you're in your kitchen and you have a second to go in and do it, just do it now. Why wait? If you're like, nah, I don't feel like it's not the time right now, I can't, then fine. But like, I love to just in action, let's do it right now while we're here. So 3 tablespoons of broccoli.
Holly, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I have a lot of comments I want to make.
Well, okay, keep making comments.
All right, so I have a lot of experience with teaching people to do this. And these people were doing it for their life. And they stayed in touch with me for years. The ones that were successful in doing this developed a system that made it simple. The ones that didn't make a system and was sprouting every day and soaking and rinsing constantly and in relatively small batches, they gave up. They don't have 15, 20 minutes twice a day to do this. It's time consuming. It can be time consuming if it's not organized. So I'd like to suggest that we develop a simple system, and I'd like to suggest a system that I like, which is right in front of Rebecca. So right now she's putting it into a jar. I'd like to suggest that you use the colander method. You have a colander right there, Rebecca.
I'm gonna do
For a
that.
minute. For a
Yeah.
minute, let's just show that. Let's just show that, okay? So a fine screened colander you could get at a dollar store, and then a bowl that's big enough that that'll fit into it, bigger than the one that Rebecca has, actually, a bowl.
This is fine because it'll just like.
A bowl bigger than the one Rebecca has. Okay, I'm going to show that's good. Thank you. So now hold that colander up. Take your seeds and put them in that colander. Now, Rebecca is talking about a couple of tablespoons of this and a couple of tablespoons of that. And frankly, the kit that we sent you doesn't have an abundance. But Doug kept talking about abundance. He kept talking about enough to eat, you know, big amounts every day or multiple times a day. So a tablespoon of this or 3 tablespoons is not going to do that. So let's just make believe that after you practice doing it and you want to really do it right, you're going to get a relatively large amount of these seeds. So you have abundance. Let's make believe we're skipping to that stage right now for a moment of you have plenty of seeds. Take not just a couple of tablespoons, but take several tablespoons of each of 2 or 3 of the small seeds. Rebecca, what small seeds do you have there?
I have the broccoli and the radish and
The broccoli and the radish.
But please just let me finish. Let me finish, please. And we can do this after because I want to show everybody how to sprout, and then we can do any extra like sac-ons after, please. Okay. So because everybody like wants to just know the basics, and then we can get into like the how to be an expert after. So we have broccoli and radish are the little ones, and you can use them. I like to use like a finely hold strainer for that because they are small. So I see a lot of people are really into the jars. So like that's fine, but one or the other would be fine. So I think if you can just go ahead and get 3 tablespoons of the broccoli, 3 tablespoons of the radish, a half a cup of lentil, and a half a cup of mung bean, it's a really good place to start. Now, if you're doing the bowl method, the strainer method, you really just have to put the half a cup of lentils into any bowl. Oh, here, I'll show you this. So, and when it comes to putting the amount of water that you need, it's about 3 times the volume of the lentils, so, or of the seeds. So whatever it is, you just kind of fill it up 3 times and that'll be enough. It most likely will only absorb about half of it, but it's just good to have abundance. So that's basically like the basics of what you need to know. Whatever seeds you're doing, do 3 times the volume of it and let it soak for 8 to 12 hours. So for lentil, we have this in a bowl. For broccoli, I have this in a mason jar. And a bunch of people are saying that it takes up less room to use the jars, and that could be true. Whatever works for you. Like both of them really do work. And then radish. Also, we're gonna do.
I think any kind of water.
Yeah, any water is okay, but if people always ask, does it have to be filtered? Does it have to be like regular water? New York water is like good enough, I would say, to do it. But if you want to be really strict about it, you know, you could use others, but I don't. So again, this is
the thing is that the seeds absorb a lot of water and they also expand. So that's why we're putting in an abundance of water, so that to allow for the expansion of the seeds, they're going to get fatter and come up, and they're also going to absorb the water. The water level is going to go down. And you don't want to have any seeds sticking out of the top. You want all the seeds to get treated exactly the same.
Yeah.
So
And
that's why.
somebody asked if the seeds are in the colander or in the bowl. The seeds, if you're doing the colander method, you're still soaking them in a bowl. So you first soak them in a bowl, and then I'm going to show you how to do the straining process. So I've got lentil, broccoli, radish. I just need to do the mung bean, and I'm going to do that in a bowl as well. About a half a cup. And you can see I'm just like winging it because why not? Okay, so this is the basics. This is what you're going to have on your counter tonight. Everybody with me? This is like super basic. It's literally just activating the seeds with water because all living things need water to be activated. So that's all that we're doing. We're watering the seeds to now be activated. Let's see if there's any questions at this point. Are you mixing the seeds up? I don't like to mix the seeds up because they all have their own personality and they all grow at different rates. I like to grow them separately. There are seed mixes that come together, and you can experiment with getting that. Like there shouldn't be any problem, especially if they're already pre-made as a mix. But certain things like garbanzo beans, certain seeds just are slimy and they grow a little bit funky, and they'll they're harder to grow. And I don't want you to get frustrated or like think some things grow at different rates. So I like to grow them all separately.
Can you sprout chia or sesame seeds?
Okay, so you can soak and sprout chia and sesame seeds. They're not going to get like a huge tail that comes out of them, but what the concept is of sprouting is just activating them. So each seed has an amount of time that it needs in order to sprout. And that's like we have to look at a guide for that. But typically we say for sesame seeds, just for about 4 hours, it needs to be soaked in order to be activated. Chia seeds, I'm not sure, but we can look up that. So yeah, like in fact, in our cleanse program, I have you use sesame seeds to make milk, and you can just literally put the sesame seeds into a blender with water, maybe a little vanilla extract, and blend it up, and it makes milk. But we always want all the seeds that we use to be sprouted and activated, because then it brings the enzymes in for your body to digest it much better. So good question, and that's the answer. Okay, let's see. Sunflower sprouts, do they need to be grown in soil or will a jar be adequate? Sunflower sprouts, when you're growing them in a jar, it's just going to grow like a sprout with a little tail of white. It's not going to grow into like the microgreen that the sunflower sprouts that we know and love. That has to be put into a tray and grown under the light for like 10 days. Does it have to be in soil or not? There are people that grow it hydroponically, but we're big believers in soil, and we think that a lot of the nutrients come from the soil. So when it comes to sunflower sprouts, I would definitely grow those to be the microgreens, because those are the ones that you're looking for. Here, I'll show you. These guys don't grow just in the jars. And I'm going to get to that at the end. The things that you're not growing right now are the microgreens, and those are like the bigger greens like this. This is what's not going to happen from your seeds right now. They're just going to get a little tail that's coming out of them, which is very the same amounts of nutrients. I was looking at some studies, and it's like a little bit controversial of whether there's more in sprouts or more in microgreens. Like I've seen a few different things, but it's still really good for you, the sprouts that you're growing at home. So it's still giving you a very wide variety of greens. Let's see. One TED Talk said to clean the seeds with hydrogen peroxide. Is that what we should have done beforehand? Yeah, hydrogen peroxide I only would use if you're noticing that your seeds are not germinating and just like there's a lot of mold in them. But even so, it's really just a matter of your seeds not being good. So just get new seeds. You shouldn't really need hydrogen peroxide. That's a really good question. I want to get to the next step so that you guys know what to do tomorrow morning and what the whole process is from beginning to end. And then we'll get into any extra tips. Okay. Are you guys with me? Give me a yes, or give me some thumbs up.
But 1 second, Rebecca, I think we all have to take a deep breath. Because there's one comment in the chat that this feels overwhelming, and you're saying it's really simple. So maybe there is something lost in the translation, or maybe the interaction that happened perhaps may have made it feel a little more overwhelming. So not to say start over, but can you go really quickly through the steps in the sense that on your side, it's not overwhelming, so that it conveys to our side it's not overwhelming for the people that it feels that way for.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, what is sprouting? Sprouting is taking seeds, soaking them in water so they're activated, and then draining them in the morning and soaking and then rinsing them twice a day. Okay, so it's 3 steps. You're taking the seeds and soaking them overnight in water. This way they're activated. Once they're activated and they absorb some of the water, you then drain them either in a colander like this or with a mesh when you turn it over, and you're just draining it out so it doesn't have any water. Then you rinse it twice a day. And by rinsing it, it's just keeping it healthy, keeping the mold away, and continuously giving it like water because it's thirsty. And while you're rinsing it twice a day, in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days after rinsing it twice a day and just leaving it in either the jar or in the colander, a sprout grows. Does that make sense?
You all can put in the chat what's not connecting if there's, or what is overwhelming for you, if anything at all.
Step 1, soak. Step 2, drain. Step 3, rinse twice a day.
So
Okay.
when using the colander, can you leave the seeds in it while it's soaking?
When you're using the colander, no, you're soaking the seeds in a bowl of water. Like that, the colander only comes in the draining aspect. So the first step is just make sure that your seeds are soaking. So whether they're soaking in a bowl or in a jar that you're going to then drain, that's the first step. When should you rinse? During the morning and night. I'm going to get to that. But everybody understands, as far as soaking goes, you're just soaking in either a bowl or a jar with 3 times the water to the seeds. That's the first step. Okay?
I'd like to define these terms that we're using simply. Soaking means soaking it overnight for 8 to 10 hours. When we say soak, we mean put it in a bowl with an abundance of water and let it sit there at room temperature for like overnight. That's the definition of soaking. Then when we say draining, we mean to drain the water, put it in a colander or use the mesh on your jar to drain away the water.
Okay,
Now
so
it's important to drain all the water, and perhaps even take a dry paper towel and whisk away any excess water that's on the bottom of the seeds. So if you turned your jar upside down and you let all the water drain out, the bottom seeds would still have a lot of water attached to them. That water needs to be whisked away with a dry paper towel. That
Okay.
is called draining.
I'm going to show what draining is.
Okay.
Draining with the colander is just as such. You use the colander, you put it over a bowl. This is my lentils. After it was soaked overnight, you just put it into the colander as you would pasta and just kind of shake it out. And then now that's drained. Okay, now the rinsing part goes in when you now put water on top of that and just kind of move it around, whisk away the bottom, maybe rinse it again, whisk it away, and that's it. Now you leave it to drain until the evening. So then you just, if you're using the colander, you just leave it to drain just like this. Okay, so you soaked it overnight, you drained it into the colander in the morning, you rinsed it a little bit in the faucet, and now you're just leaving it to drain till the end of the day, where you're going to rinse it again.
This might not be obvious to some people who are looking. So there's space on the bottom of the bowl, so it's not draining and still soaking like the the ones on the bottom are not still soaking in some water. The bowl should be big enough that there's space for the water not to touch the seeds.
Yeah. And I see that there's like a little bit of like, well, I want to just use the jar, and I'm going to show you the jar, and the jar is great. I'm telling you that the reason why we keep saying about the strainer method is because we've been doing it for so long, and we do it in abundance for like the whole family. And to us, it just feels easier to do it in a strainer like this. Plus you just have it on the counter, and as it's growing, you see it, and then you just go and you eat at it. Like, that's why I love the strainer. It's because as it starts growing, you don't even need to put a paper towel over it. It just starts to sprout, and you just see the sprouts growing, and you rinse it every day, and they're just growing and growing, and you just pick at them and you eat them. And it's just like a really fun thing to have on your counter. Okay. So does that make sense as far as the colander method?
Are you covering or uncovering the colander?
The colander doesn't need to be covered. You can put a moist paper towel over it, but typically it doesn't really matter. I've done it either way. But yeah, you can put a moist paper towel over it just to keep it moist on the top.
And what is the relationship to light for all of this? Like, is this sitting in a windowsill? Is it away from light? Is it in darkness?
So this is just in the kitchen with light, and it doesn't need any darkness, and it doesn't need any extra light. So it'll grow in any environment really. But yeah, because the light is what would make the greens will have the chlorophyll, but it's going to grow regardless.
And so do you want, there was a question earlier in the chat about doing it in light versus not. And yes, I'm sorry, for the people who are asking, Aaron is part of this family as well. That's Rebecca's brother. So he's the person answering the questions in the chat. Thank you, Aaron, for doing that. But there was a question about if you do it in the light, you're going to get green. And if you do it in not sunlight, you're going to get something else. Which one do you want?
Okay. You can either is good. It's going to take a couple more days to get the green. So in about 3 days of rinsing it twice a day with the lentils, you're going to start getting the tail that comes out. That's just white. If you want to get to the green part, it'll need another like 3 or 4 days. And you can put that on the windowsill, and it'll get a little bit of green. But I like them at that like 3 to 4 day stage. To me, that's when they taste the best. So do you need the greens? Not really. No, the answer is no. The sprout itself is good, like once the tail comes out.
And when you say eat it out of the colander, are you eating the seed along with the sprout?
Yeah, so the seed is the sprout. So the little tail comes out, and now the seed is the sprout, and you're just, once the tail comes out, it's ready to eat and it's sprouted, and that's going to happen in about 2 days. So then you just grab at it and you eat it.
Is there any instance of eating it too soon? Like if the tail is too short, or any tail at all, you can start eating it?
Any tail at all. In fact, even when it's just like barely there's a tail even at all, but it's still like soft enough to bite into, it's still edible. So you're never going to have a problem that it's like undercooked.
And then the question is, should we have 4 colanders? But really, you need a different colander for everything that you're sprouting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And someone says that seeds are floating on top. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. You can see mine.
And there was another question before, is there such thing as putting too much water?
No, because you're going to drain it no matter what.
And just to humor us, can you say it one more time from the beginning? So not what sprouts are or whatever, but just, I think because it looks like you're doing both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So maybe if we had separated it, it may not be as confusing.
Okay. So soak overnight. Leave the seeds in water in a bowl overnight for 8 to 12 hours. And be sure to have the water height be twice or 3 times the height of the seeds. So you can see that doesn't really matter. So 2 to 3 times the height of the seeds. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Step 2, rinse twice daily, morning and night. So first you drain the seeds from the soaked water in the morning, This can be done using any strainer method, a strainer, a colander, screen capped mason jar, or cloth bag, then rinse with fresh water, stir and drain. Make sure the water is fully drained after each rinse, but also that humidity and airflow are proper. So all that this is talking about is just making sure that it's fully drained. And that is basically just making sure that it's not sitting in the water once it's drained, so that it doesn't just sit in the water and like, you know, get moldy. So I really want to encourage you guys to, once you do it, you're going to realize that it is simple, but I guess the semantics of it makes it seem, I'm not like saying that if you're not understanding it, that's definitely on me. So it's not on you guys. So I want to make it simple for you guys. And I apologize if there's something that you're not understanding.
No, it's not you. It's just something that's new.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think because it's new, there's just fear of doing it wrong.
Yes.
But I agree with you. Once we start doing it, and everyone, this is the first time we're doing it, so you might not do it right the first time, and that's okay. But you'll learn what you did wrong, and then as time goes on, all of you are going to become sprouting experts. Just going back to that question about when you eat it. So, does there come a point where you don't, where the seed and the sprout are the same thing, or the question is saying, does the seed disappear?
Is there a point when the seed and the sprout are the
Like
same?
when you look in the bowl and you don't see a seed anymore?
No, you're always going to see the seed. The seed is the star of the shell. So I'll show you. This, you can see here, there's a little tail. You can see here, there's a little tail. These are all sprouts, and it's still majority the seed. It's just a little tail that's making it sprouted. Does that make sense?
Yes, so you're eating all of that.
You're eating the whole thing. Yep. Let's see if I have another picture. Yeah, same thing here. This is the broccoli seed, this broccoli sprouts. And you can see there is green here. And that's not necessarily because it was in the light. It just grows green because that's what the, I mean, it's going to be in the light in your kitchen, but you don't need to have to put it under a really like an LED light or on the windowsill or anything for it to get green like that.
And at any point, are you refrigerating them?
Once they're sprouted, they get refrigerated and they can be put into a Pyrex glass, like Tupperware or a Tupperware of any sort. And that's it. You just put them into the refrigerator once they're fully sprouted. So you know that they're fully sprouted, like I said, once the tail is about the same size as the seed. You can see.
And
there.
how long do they stay fresh once refrigerated? 7 days.
That's a good question. Yeah, about 7 days. If you put paper towel in them to keep them dry. But yeah, about 7 days. And the lentil and the mung beans can last me like 2 or 3 weeks, not kidding, sometimes if you keep them really dry. And it's not bad for you to eat them if they're old. Like the only time that they're bad is if like they smell weird. And something too, they smell like very bad. You'll see when we see each other next week, some might have a question about the broccoli sprouts. And I told you guys this, that they do have a little bit of like a gassy smell, but it's not, that's just like that's the way that broccoli sprouts are. It's a very mild smell though. So it shouldn't be, it's hard to explain a smell, but it's not like repulsive, but it's a little bit of a smell. So just don't be alarmed by that.
Okay, so some of the jars that people ordered, I think on Amazon, came with like a black cover. Should they be using that?
A black cover that
It goes over the glass part, so I guess to create darkness for the sprouts.
Oh, yeah, they could do that when they're soaking it.
And only then.
Yeah, only when they're soaking it. And the truth is, yes. So it's not super important to do that. And you'll see that, like, I just leave them on my counter like this, even with the water, even with the lights on, and they're still gonna sprout. So I think that it's just they'll sprout either way. So the covering of it is just something that is an extra step, but I don't think it's that important.
And two questions. Can you put them in a Ziploc bag and can you freeze them?
Yeah, so you can put them in a Ziploc bag once they're sprouted for sure. And you can freeze them also. Freezing broccoli sprouts is a great thing to freeze because that you can add them to smoothies later. So yeah, that's a really good way to use them, is making smoothies with them later. Even if you wanted to use the sprouts to make soup, like obviously we recommend to have them alive as much as possible and fresh, but like let's say you have a ton of lentil sprouts left over, you might put them into a soup, and having them sprouted still helps your body to digest them better than just normal lentils would.
Okay, and so when do they go in the fridge? Like,
They go
what
into
are you seeing in front of you?
you're seeing, I'll show you. You're seeing like this. This is what they look like. So the seeds will be a little bit more plump. They'll have a tail that's about the size of the seed, like this, and they're ready to eat. And you put them in the fridge.
So I bought some mung bean sprouts last week from Whole Foods, and they're really long. Like, they don't look as short as these. At some point, are these sprouts, do they get long, or this size that you're showing us is what we're going to see?
This is what you're going to see. The mung bean sprouts can get long. You can see here. Let's see if I can. No, it's not a good, but you can sort of see here that these mung bean seed, like these like long white tails, those are like the mung beans being a little bit longer. But as far as like the ones that you'll see at like a Chinese restaurant, that's not necessarily what we're going for. Just a white tail is all we're going for, and it doesn't have to be super long. You're still going to get all the nutrients.
Can you give us an inch or something? Like, just so you know, it's not too soon. So like, is it like 1 inch in length?
No, it's not going to be 1 inch in length. Like a lentil, it's exactly what I said, about the same size as the seed itself. So as the seed, as you'll see, the white is going to be the same size as the seed itself.
Okay.
So it's not even an inch. It's like a quarter of an inch.
All right. So for the people who were saying they felt overwhelmed or confused, do you have additional questions? Are you feeling better? Can you put that in the chat, please?
Yes, please tell me how you guys are feeling and thinking. Eat the seed and the sprout. Can any seed be sprouted? Black beans, red peas. I'm going to get to that, of certain things that can be sprouted and certain things that can't. But this was the colander method. I'm just going to go over it one more time with the mason jar. So I had my broccoli seeds. They soaked overnight. They soaked up like a lot of the water. Probably this much water won't be there tomorrow morning. And then I'm just going to put my lid on, or my mesh, whatever, and just put a lid on there. And then I'm going to drain it by just turning it over. And then as far as rinsing goes, you put water into the jar like this, shake it around to make sure that all the seeds get watered, drain them, and then you're leaving them to drain by putting them on an angle. So there are like sprout jar like containers that hold them to keep them on an angle, but you can also just put it on a counter in between two different things so that it'll be on an angle. The reason why you want it on an angle is so that it can fully drain out. If it's just like this, then it's going to just make a puddle on your counter. And if it's like this, it's not going to drain, right? So on an angle is the best way. And then in the evening, again, you rinse it and then keep it to drain. And by just doing that process of rinsing it twice a day, in about 5 days, you're going to get broccoli sprouts. Same thing with the radish. In about 5 days, you're going to get radish sprouts. Does that make sense?
Yes, so it is another way to say that on the 5th day, you take them out and put them in your container.
Yep, exactly.
And what happens if you don't? Like, it'll just get longer?
Yep, they'll get longer. And if you continue to water them, they'll just get bigger and bigger. And they will be okay. Like, you know, they'll be okay. It's just, I don't know. If you keep growing them, they just get like hairy, and we like them around that day. That's like the typical amounts that you put them in the fridge. So around like 5, 6, 7 days is the right amount. And if you guys want to post in the Facebook, in our Facebook group, like a picture of your sprouts, if you have any questions, that's another thing. If you're feeling nervous, like, I don't know if they're ready or not, you can do that. But yeah, the lentil and the radish and the broccoli, I'll show you when I had that video. Whoops. They
Also have the
Oh, that's the lentil that I was showing you, but I'll show you this again.
to sprout at home, use a half a cup of seeds, soak it in water, and cover it for 8 to 12 hours. Day 2, drain the seeds into a finely hulled colander and shake the colander so that there's no moisture left. Rinse the seeds, leave it to finish draining, and cover with a moist towel. Continue twice a day to rinse the seeds. To reduce mold, you can gently move the seeds around in the colander to make sure that they're all getting equally rinsed and dried. And you know that they're sprouted when the tail is about the same size as the seed. You can sprout mung beans, lentils, and broccoli here the same way. You can also sprout using the jar method, which
Those are the radish.
is the most popular on the internet, which is putting the seeds and soaking them in a jar and then draining them with some type of finely hulled mesh on the top. And then you turn them upside down in order to drain them. So you just leave them on the counter in between two things or put them in a sprouting jar. And in just a few days,
Okay, so you see,
you have yourself a batch of.
this is what the radish will look like when it's ready. This is what the broccoli will look like when it's ready.
And will all of them be sprouted, or is there an instance where there might be some in the jar or colander that didn't?
Yeah, there is an instance that some of them might not sprout, but it's pretty unusual, especially since we're sending you our seeds, and our seeds have a really good germination rate. So, yeah, these should all sprout pretty evenly.
Okay, and just to ask the question, it's day 5 and you think you see something, and so you eat them. Is there, or are there any adverse reactions that people might want to look out for if anything went wrong?
Yeah, I mean, if you feel nauseous or something, or you had have a headache or something, but the likelihood of something going wrong is very, very, very low. So as long as you do the rinsing, you guys understand the concept of the rinsing, right? Because I know these are new terminologies. So I'm just like throwing at you new terminologies, but as long as you understand the concept, then it becomes simple. So why are we soaking it overnight? It's so that the seeds can be activated with water, right? That makes sense? So whether you're soaking it in a bowl or soaking in a jar, either way, the seeds are being soaked in water, right? That first step makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. Then why are we draining it? We're draining it because if it stays in the water, it'll drown. If it just stays in the water indefinitely, it'll drown, and it needs to now breathe. It's ready to be, it's been activated and now needs to breathe. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, then why are we rinsing it? We're rinsing it, that's to make sure that it doesn't have mold. We're keeping it and that doesn't have mold, and because it's thirsty, because now it's activated and it's alive. So it needs water twice a day, and we want to make sure that it doesn't get any mold. So by simply putting a little bit of water in it and moving it around a little bit, that's number one, making sure that there's no bacteria that's building up. And number 2, giving it a little bit of water because it's thirsty. Does that make sense?
I have a question there. And I'm just asking because I'm sure someone has it, they're not asking it. Is there any chance, because it's summer, say you have a really hot house, that you might cook the seeds or anything like that?
No. The typical, like the ideal the ideal temperature and humidity is room temperature like 68 and like a low humidity. But yeah, like I said, I've sprouted while I was camping in the middle of summer before, and it'll still, Doug is sprouting in the desert, you know, like it'll sprout. Seeds are incredible. They're very, very versatile. They're very strong, and they do everything that they possibly can to sprout. So just believe in the seeds and they will sprout.
I'd like to answer a couple of questions. So we were talking about, like, can you over sprout them? When should you put them in the refrigerator? So I'd like to, like, a lot of what we're trying to do today is to teach you to learn. So you're going to learn yourself the answers to many of these questions. And a good way to do that is to simply taste the sprouts like every day or even twice a day. And you'll find that when the sprouts are too sprouted, that they get fibrous and stringy and they don't taste the same. So that's when, and Rebecca correctly mentioned that all of these seeds act a little differently. So for us to try to give you an exact thing, this is many days or this much length, that's not going to work. But what will work is tasting the seeds along the way and saying, you know what, I like them better on this seed. I like better on day 4. That seed I like better on day 5. When this seed got to day 6, I threw it out. I didn't even like it at all. It was just stringy. It wasn't like a. So that's the answer. Is taste them, see what you like, and some people are going to prefer that sprout, and some people are going to prefer this sprout, and that's the beauty of having all these different ones. Is that find the ones you like, and then just sprout those, and sprout them to the amount that you prefer.
Yeah.
Sprout them in the method that you prefer, whether it's the jar or the colander. You might just try both, or just try one for a while and one time say, let me try that other way. And then, wow, this is easier. So that's don't be overwhelmed. The first time doesn't count. Okay, this kit was meant not to count. If by the time you're done with the kit, you think you know what you're doing, you've achieved. Don't sweat it. Okay.
Okay, so can we sprout black beans and kidney beans? The answer is no. You can't sprout those. And I do have a little bit of a article that talks on that. The types of seeds to sprout. Avoid sprouting kidney beans for raw eating. They contain a toxin that causes nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea in many folks. If you do choose to sprout kidney beans, make sure to boil the finished sprouts for at least 10 minutes before consuming them. Chia seeds, flax seeds, and other seeds that create the goo are tricky to sprout properly. Oh, that's important about the chia and the flax. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Chia seed pudding, right? When you put the chia seeds into water, it makes a gelatinous outside of it, and it makes for a really delicious pudding. So that's just kind of like a different story. But yeah, I want to stick to the seeds that you guys have in front of you so that you can, because I know that the seeds that you have in front of you are the simplest and most versatile seeds to grow. So start with those, and then along on this journey, remember, you have a lifetime to figure this out. So this is your first eye-opening experience, and thank God you have the Sprout book, you have Doug, you have us, you have the best quality seeds in the world in the palms of your hands, and the easiest to grow sprouts in the palm of your hands. And you might make a mistake and you might get confused, but that's what next week is for you to tell us, hey, what went wrong, and we can help you to figure out what to do next time. So this week, just experiment, just have fun, take what you learned from this. And I'm going to continue to answer any questions that you have, just to ease your mind a little bit. But please, 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 just have fun with this. And and love your seeds. And as they're soaking overnight, just like, you'd be like, okay, seeds, drink all the water. And then when you're draining them, okay, seeds, we're draining you out now so that you can breathe. Okay, we're gonna rinse you a little bit, give you a bath, you know?
Can you explain so I think there's some confusion with the cheesecloth, and that's more so for the jar method, and it's the same as the mesh that you used, right? It just goes over the top of the jar.
Yes. So the cheesecloth is the same as the mesh, or the jar that, let's see here. If you have a sprouting jar, they actually have like lids that have mesh on top of them. These are great. You can get them from Amazon. But basically all that it is something that is very finely holed so that when you flip it over to drain, the seeds don't come out. That's all. Anything to make sure that the seeds don't come out so that you can drain the water out of them.
Is there a specific size jar that people should be looking for?
Is there a specific size jar? No. Like I have, so you can see I have both of these, and it'll probably fill up. Like, it depends on how much seed you have, but like I said, it's about like 4 times the volume of the seeds themselves. So that as long as you think that there's about 4 times the volume of the seeds that you're putting in, you'll be fine.
Do you cover the jar while soaking?
You cover the jar while soaking. Yeah, you can cover the jar while soaking.
And you're covering it with the mesh?
Well, if you want to cover it, then it would just be, you were saying some people have like their jars came with something dark that you could cover it over with, you can. But
so the dark thing is for the glass, goes over the glass area. So would you just put the lid back on it if it came with a lid?
Oh, the dark thing was for the glass to keep it dark. Okay, I understand. Yeah, you just put the lid over it. Even if you do cover this, it's not gonna, there's really no reason to cover it. But if you wanted to cover it, you could put just like a moist paper towel over it. But because it's like barely going to be in contact with the seeds, it doesn't really make a difference. This, at least it looks closer to the seeds, so it'll keep it moist. But yeah, you don't really need to cover the seeds. You really just need to soak them.
Okay. Are there any YouTube videos or anything that you would suggest that people watch?
Yeah, Maggie had a good question. Do you still rinse when you put them in the fridge? No. Once they're in the fridge, they're done and they don't need to be rinsed. That's a really good question.
Yeah, I was saying, are there any videos like YouTube pages or anything? Do you all have a page or something where there's different videos that people could watch, or any that you suggest?
Yeah. Let's see if I on YouTube have, maybe what I can do is I can give you one, and when you do, are you going to send out an email as like a follow-up to people who registered? If I give you a link to something, they can watch it. I'll put the link into the email that you send out, because I do have one. I just have to find it on my YouTube channel. So yeah, this wouldn't be like, this demonstration was a little bit all over the place. So there, as far as like getting a clearer process of it, also in the guide, it does explain, to drain and rinse the seeds in the morning, and it gives a pretty good explanation in here. But yeah, definitely I'll give you a link to a video that you can send out on YouTube. Or you could just Google any YouTube video for how to sprout generally. And I would recommend that maybe if you're feeling nervous, just to watch a YouTube video one more time. But I also would love for you guys to ask me if you have any questions. So I put the link to my Facebook group in here, and I recommend everybody join it so that you can post your process. I actually would love that. This would really make you guys all feel safe and like we're really with you in the process. I would love for everybody to join this Facebook group and like each day post pictures of what you're doing. And if you have any questions, we will comment right back to you right away. So I really, really want to inspire you to to be at ease with this process and just understand the fundamentals, which is that the seeds need to be soaked in water, and they need to be drained, and then they need to be rinsed twice a day because they're thirsty and to reduce bacteria. And in a few days, once you see a little tail that's the same size as the seeds, they're ready to eat. And you can't really eat them too young. You can't really eat them too old. And if you have any questions, if you think something looks funky, just send us a picture. Also, an important thing to notice is once the sprout gets a little bit bigger, the tail, the white tail, gets these little fluffy white things on them that look like mold, but it's really just thirsty. And the way that you'll know that it's just thirsty is by putting water on it, it goes away. So if you see anything, again, just post a picture into the WhatsApp, into the Facebook group, and we'll let you know what's up. But yeah, I'm excited for you guys to come on next week because I know you're all going to be like, oh, that was simple.
One more question. So Aaron just wrote, if using the open air method, colander or strainer, cover with moist towel to prevent excessive drying. Are you covering exactly on the seeds, or are you covering the top of the colander and strainer?
The top of the colander and strainer is fine.
All right. Any final questions before you guys go and make amazing sprouts? Anyone?
I want to take a couple breaths because you guys know that my heart is in this fully. And also the inspiration that we got from Doug at the beginning of this session. This was a long session, almost 2 hours now. And we got like the best of the best, an icon coming in and really inspiring us from a spiritual perspective on the standards that we have for ourselves, and also to come into every single conversation with like empowerment. And I really want you all to leave this conversation in this session feeling, number one, empowered, feeling like, wow, whether I know how to do this or not, whether I'm going to get it done on the first try or not, I'm learning something new. I have new knowledge and new experience that's going to lead me on a new path that who knows where I'm going to be in a few years. Also, you're just like Doug was saying, it took him 20 years to get to where he is now. So this is just the beginning. And luckily you have Dr. Tettey, you have us to be on this journey for your life. You don't have to get it all like right now. Like perfecting ourselves is a lifetime journey. So just take this in as something new that you're learning, like as if you're a student, right? Like we love being students and taking notes and learning, and there's so much information that we can learn. And if there's anything that for you to be spending your time learning and experimenting with and potentially making a mistake on, it's this. So enjoy the process of learning this as if you're a student. And enjoy eating them this week. So you're going to soak them tonight, tomorrow you're going to rinse them and drain them. You're going to drain them and rinse them. And then in a 2 or 3 days, they're going to have tails. And once they're sprouted, you're going to start eating them by the handful. You're going to start putting them and sprinkling them on all of your salads. You're going to start putting them in your smoothies. I wanted to share the recipe that I really like with broccoli sprouts in particular. It's like 2 handfuls of broccoli sprouts into the blender with 1/4 of a pineapple, a full pear, and like 4 ounces of water. Broccoli sprouts in particular are really good for mental health and the central nervous system, and of course cancer preventative, but I like to call it the brain smoothie. So putting the broccoli sprouts in with pineapple and pear and water is a really delicious smoothie and a good way to get those broccoli sprouts in without that like really sharp flavor all the time. And then as far as Doug was saying with making salads and sprouts being the base of the salad, yeah, experiment not even making the base of your salad with romaine lettuce this week. Experiment with making it be tons and tons of sprouts. And yeah, I would love to see pictures of what you make. And I'm very excited to see what happens next week when you guys come back to me and share your experience, because I think it's going to be a weight off of your shoulders, also if you're nervous. So I just want to take a second to take a breath. Shake your shoulders out. And 2 more breaths. One more. And thank you all for being here. I know that my dad wanted to share something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say something that I think is going to help everybody put this this process into perspective. If you were here last week, you might have heard me say that for the first 10 years of me running the business, I learned by trial and error, mostly error. Now I'm considered like a master grower. We heard Doug say that I was a living legend. Do not be afraid that you might make a mistake with what you're doing this week. In fact, making mistakes would be very useful. You'll see what's wrong, you'll ask what happened, we'll correct it, and now you'll learn something. So whatever you do, whether it's right or wrong, is right. Just relax, follow the simple steps the best you think that what you heard and what your notes say, and maybe go on a YouTube. Just enjoy it. Try the little sprouts every day. See dead seeds. What I wonder what I did wrong. Whatever. And next week we're going to go over everybody's results, and everyone's going to be an expert after that next lesson.
There is an important question. Just confirming, this is Diane Bailey, just confirming after soaking and rinsing for 2 days, then just leave the jar to sprout. No, as long as they're still in the sprouting process, you still have to rinse them twice a day. So at no point are you just leaving them on the counter without rinsing them. If you find that they're ready they're sprouted, then they go in the refrigerator and they don't need to be rinsed anymore. But if you don't think that they're ready yet and they're still on the counter, they need to be rinsed twice a day.
Because they're drinking the water that's on their surface. And so they need to be, given a little drink.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm very excited to see you guys next week. I wanted to share that if anybody wanted to get a package of greens as well, to do a greens challenge of getting greens into their diet, that's what we're going to be doing next week. So I decided I'm not going to even really push you guys to do that this week, because I really want you to just focus on sprouting this week. But next week, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that we have and how to incorporate the stuff that we grow and we sell into your diets more, and also recipes on how to use it, and a little bit more of inspiration on how to make a daily routine of it, and how to optimize your diet, kind of like the way that Doug was saying. What we teach is literally exactly how Doug lives. So I'm very excited to share with you how to be living like Doug. So next week, we're going to have some recipes, we're going to have more information, and break it down into being more realistic into how to make this a lifestyle. This week, experiment, have fun, post in the Facebook group that we have, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. And everyone, make sure if you came on this meeting through a Zoom link that you just received from a friend or from anyone, and you haven't actually registered for the program, please register. The links are on Instagram. If you don't have a registration link, you can email me, you can email Rebecca. But if you don't register, then you're not going to get the follow-up email that's going to contain the links for how to buy seeds if they're sold out at Perfect Foods, or the YouTube channel that Rebecca's going to send, or anything like that. So please make sure that you're actually registered for this series. The other thing that I want to say to you all is, I always remind you to think of where you've been and where you are now. So, for example, ordering a number 3 in the McDonald's drive-thru to being on a meeting for 2 hours about growing sprouts, right? So we have to give ourselves some credit, give yourself a pat on the back for not logging off, perhaps when things became confusing, or anything else, for reading the book. And so before we leave today, Doug gave us some amazing affirmations, and he read Invictus to us. I want you all to give yourself one affirmation in the chat for this process. So I am going to learn how to sprout, and I am going to enjoy this journey, is an example of a positive affirmation. So everyone, please list one positive affirmation in the chat. Rebecca, you too. List one that you have for us and this process. And I say to you all again, I am so proud of you for trusting me with this, for trusting yourselves with this. We're going to do this together. It's going to be fun. And like we keep saying, we have to keep taking it to the next level, the next level, and the next level. And so I don't know where this came from. I was not sprouting at any point. I needed something for us to do this summer. And here we are. And so I hope you all are excited about this journey. So place your affirmation in the chat, and I'm going to unmute you all so we can give Rebecca, Harley, and your
Aaron.
brother,
Aaron.
Aaron. He left, so I didn't see his name in the chat. Thank you for everything. Thank you to Doug again. This is an amazing evening. And thank you all, HeartSmarts, Perfect Foods, and everyone else who joined to support this evening. So I'm going to just unmute you all, and you can share your thanks as well. Please make sure you register so you get the follow-up information and the links for next week. All right, everyone. So have a great evening. And thank you so much for joining
Thank you
us.
so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you. Amazing.
Oh,
Wow.
thank
And
you.
with you, I'm so excited about
Dr. Tettey.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tettey.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Tettey, for introducing us
Thank you,
to
Dr.
Sprout.
Teddy.
Beautiful experience.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Attitude. I'm going
All
to
right,
spread.
everyone. Good night. Happy
Good
sprouting.
night.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night. Thank
I
you.
look forward
Night.
to it.
That was
Thank
wonderful.
you. We
Bye.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.